Hey, it's Jaime, and welcome to a selects edition of Eventual Millionaire. This is where we go back and find the best of the best, the ones that you loved from the past 6-7 years. We've been doing this a long time, and there's some amazing interviews with amazing guests that you have not seen yet. So we are bringing them back. It is the selects edition. Let us know what you think, and I hope you enjoy.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire, and today on the show we have Jason Cohen. Now, Jason's super cool. I met him in Austin, Texas, because he's the founder of WPEngine, which I actually just switched over to about 2 or 3 weeks ago for my hosting company. So far, I can say I love them. Thank goodness. They've been wonderful. But he's also, which is what he wants to hear. He doesn't want me to say they suck on TV. No, he does not. One of the things, though, that I found really, really interesting in doing all his background is that he's started 4 companies, all with over $1 million in revenue, all profitable, which is also huge. And he has a ton of experience. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. Thanks so much for coming on, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
So you have an incredible track record. The first thing I want to ask is, did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I always knew that I needed to do things my own way. And the really nice way to say that and hopefully make some money is to become an entrepreneur instead of just a disgruntled employee, which I no doubt would otherwise be if I wasn't lucky enough to find this path instead.
Fired over and over and over again, right? No, much better to be your own.
I think you're either built to need to do your own thing and start your own company or not. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that can be channeled in a positive way and also be successful, and you can stay on that path. But some people watch movies like this, like the Facebook movie, and say, "Oh, that sounds fun. I want to do that." And they won't succeed because it's not in their DNA. I think you just have it.
Really? Okay. So then that's just sort of a question I get often, right? Do people build it? Like, is it something that you can progressively get, or is it something you're born with? And you think it's something you're born with, no doubt.
I think the need to do it comes from within. Now, the skills and everything, no one's born with the skills to be a CEO and do everything, right? That doesn't exist. I mean, whether you're talking about building a smaller company, you're not born with that, and neither is there any classes in that. And if you've jumped in and done it, then you know that whatever classes there are not that helpful, and perhaps there couldn't be. Perhaps the only way is to jump in and do it. Perhaps you can read blog posts and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you just have to do it, right? That's the way it is. But also true of larger companies. I mean, you can't train and then be Steve Jobs. You just do it and make mistakes and find your way. Like there kind of isn't, by definition, there isn't a path, and that's part of why we like this, isn't it? It's because we're not doing something rote. That's part of the excitement, actually. So
new and interesting, and sometimes really sucky, but that's what makes it interesting.
Well, the highs aren't high unless there's the bad parts, unfortunately.
I agree 1,000%. So what was your first company, and how old were you when you started it?
The first one was called, well, I didn't actually name it, funny enough, but it was called Sheer Genius Software. It started as a company that did cross-platform C library code, meaning back before Java and so on, where if you wanted to run on lots of platforms, Unix and Mac and Windows and so on, it was hard. And so I had a library that did that. I got a little bit of funding, about $1 million, which is only a little bit when it's 1997. Now that's normal, but like it was on the one hand abnormal to raise money. On the other hand, it was approaching bubble time where it was more money was just being thrown around for nothing. Nevertheless, that ended up being a not unsuccessful consulting company. We did about $1 million a year in consulting revenue. But as you probably know, VCs don't want consulting companies. And so we actually ended up stopping that after about 2002 or so, where I kind of fell into my next company, which was IT Watchdogs, which was sort of the more proper product company.
Okay, I have a couple questions about the first one. How old were you when you started that, and what made you just jump in and get $1 million in funding?
See, it's one of these serendipitous things that can't be learned from other than that it's serendipitous. I had made some comments about how Java isn't cross-platform in a GUI sense because my thing was I was just being an arrogant little prick. And then this guy happened to see it on a mailing list, and And this guy turned out to be a partner at a VC firm called JMI, John Moore's Inc., which is still in effect. Um, but he had his own money, so he kind of put his own money in, and then John Moore's put some money in. But I know that's not because John Moore's thought this was a good idea. I know it was because this other guy did, and it was a favor. Like it's serendipity, and,
Yeah.
this is where luck comes in. Now, see, what wasn't luck is, and this is actually the interesting or important thing. What's not luck is that I was out there talking about it. What's not luck is that I had a strong point of view that
Mm.
was interesting to someone else, right? What was not luck is I had built this thing on my own time, and it was in fact valuable. That wasn't luck. So that my musings on this got into the hands of the right person, blah blah blah, totally luck. But being out there doing things, being able to take advantage of luck when it appeared, that wasn't luck. And
Ah.
that's actually the lesson is to be out there doing that, knowing, yes, it's going to take luck. And so all I have to do, I have to keep casting my fishing line because there's luck whether the fish bites this time, but it's not luck whether I'm fishing or not. And that kind of persistence, and again, having something special and unique and interesting and valuable in the first place, that part's not luck, and that part is what you can control and must do.
I love that analogy then too. So it was interesting. I thought you just were talking about it and they somehow heard of it, but you had actually taken the action to start creating something to show them.
Well, I wasn't trying to show anybody.
Yeah.
I was using it for my own consulting. So in other words, I would go get jobs um, porting a software from one platform to another. And so, like a lot of consultants, I sort of had my own toolkit I built along the way, and it was kind of useful. So even then, I wasn't seeking that, which, I guess if there's something to learn from that, so to speak, it would be, um, and this is the normal lean thing, is that, yeah, you got to have a vision and go be doing something, but at the same time, have your eyes open to what that could mean, what form could that take, and what turns. I hesitate to say pivot. I hate that concept actually, but
Really?
but that you might seek other things besides whatever was right in front of your face or whatever you thought the vision was, and that could be, those other things could be, good. That's another way to take advantage of luck. Luck's going in a different direction, so maybe it's okay for you to take that direction if it's still compatible with what you want out of this.
And one thing I have a question of too, because it sounded like you already did consulting, so you were already scratching your own itch in order to create this thing anyway, is what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, all of the companies that I've started have started in some fashion in a scratch your own itch, but scratch your own itch is not a valid company. It's
Yep.
internal. It's a possibility. I've had other itches too that weren't companies, that didn't turn into companies, weren't good ideas for company. Having a company, it takes so much other stuff. Are there other people that agree with that itch? Can you communicate that to them? Do they agree after you cajole them for 45 minutes on a customer development call, or do they agree in 3 words? But can you get to them in the first place? Can you access them in a cheap enough way to get them to the homepage? It's too expensive or difficult to even do that. I mean, there's a million things that have to be, not a million, but there's
Thankfully.
that have to be in place for it to also be a company and not just an interesting idea. So I love Scratch Your Own Itch as the idea formation, but that is far from sufficient. That's just like a first step.
Then you have to validate. So tell us what you normally go through. You've done this quite a few times. And maybe, can we talk about WPEngine? Because I mean, I like the other things, but this is sort of right now. How did WPEngine come about, and how did you do that validation process?
So I have a popular blog about startups called asmartbear.com. Letter
Which I
A.
love. I'll
Thanks.
definitely link up to that.
See, and so when a blogger like me with has ego says, "Yeah, you should probably stop reading blog posts and get on with it," then I'm telling the truth, because I would sure prefer that you subscribe to my feed, my cooking tick up along with my RSS at the counter. But I had this blog; it was popular. I got on the front page of Hacker News every week when I posted, and then the blog would crash because of the traffic. And so, as an engineer, I thought it would be fun to solve it, which it is, but I was also running Smart Bear, my third company. That's why it's called A Smart Bear, because my third company is called Smart Bear. And so I started emailing other blogger friends I knew and say, "Look, I don't care what this costs, if it's $50 a month or whatever. I just don't want it to go down. What can I go for WordPress?" And the resounding response was, "I don't know, but let me know if you find it."
Yeah. I had the exact same problem.
Right. So suddenly this turned from me asking into customer development. Literally, I would say, "Hey, if I made this site fast and it didn't go down when you got a lot of traffic, and what if I had a staging area so you could test stuff out to not be live until you're ready? Would you give me $50 a month?" And that kind of stuff. And I got 30 people to say yes out of 40, which calls, which is a really, really high hit rate for validation. So very quickly it coalesced onto the sort of a proper set of pain points and solutions and price. That's another thing. I don't think you can do validation without pricing. So it seemed like a fun problem for me to solve. I like optimization and scale and stuff like that. Like as an engineer, I like it. So this was a good idea for me. And the original intent was just to build a cash machine, something that I thought I could build it up to where it would make 30, 50K a month or something in profit, and that would be really neat. And we did build that. And then, but there was such a huge opportunity in front to go get. There was so much more we could go do. And so I made the choice 18 months in that I wanted to go after that even bigger opportunity and swing for the fences, et cetera, especially since I've had prior success, not just building companies, but selling them and so on. So I have enough money. I don't have to have another small company. And it felt like I wanted to, at this point in my life, and with this particular opportunity, et cetera, that like I wanted to go swing for the fences. And so 18 months in, it converted into, go big or go home kind of a venture.
That's amazing. That's okay. So it was sort of all my friends need this too. I'm going to create this sort of lifestyle business. Actually, on your website, I read
No, it's not, because you can't make 50K a month in profit from your friends needing websites.
Okay,
right?
And that's
ain't it? No,
you have to have a lot of friends. No,
a lot of friends. No, it was that was the kernel again. Kernel of the idea, terrific. Yes, because there's other people that needed it. Great. But no, it's not a business, and it's not validated until there's a bigger market. I think even small companies need a big market. We can get into that if you want. But there's a big enough market, lots of need. I think I can go get thousands of customers, even bootstrapped.
Okay, so let's break that down then, because I definitely want to talk about what you just mentioned. But I also want to think, so you chatted with 40 of your friends and was like, okay, I want to be on a... No,
because your friends will lie to you.
Okay.
The kernel came from friends.
Okay.
That's great. That's terrific, right?
Okay.
Or just acquaintances. But that's not customer development, and they won't tell you the truth. In fact, sometimes the worst people are other people who are sort of entrepreneurial and thoughtful, because they're going to like second guess the customer development process and try to help you, which they're not doing because they're trying to think through your business for you, which is not their job in customer development. So actually, they're often the worst people to talk to in many ways. No, what you have to do is find complete strangers who are in your target market. And they're the ones you need to test. So what I did is I went to LinkedIn and I looked for people who are WordPress consultants, because they're the ones that build the sites and tell their clients where to put their sites. And I'll give you exactly the technique I used, because a lot of people say, I don't know how to find 50 strangers to talk to me. How do I do that? So here's how you do it. You go to LinkedIn, you find, again, you find this sort of definition, your definition of your target customer as best you can, with job titles and so on. And then you send them a mail. Maybe you have to get LinkedIn Pro in order to be able to send the mail, whatever. Obviously, you start with people who are, second away from you, that kind of thing, right, to maximize that. But whatever, okay. And you send them a mail, you say, hey, look, I'm building a company. You are my target customer. So I'd love to get to ask you questions for an hour to understand your life and see if this would be, if I'm on the right track. Here's the next part, though. This is important. You say, listen, I realize your time is valuable. So I'm happy to pay whatever you think is appropriate for an hour of your time, even if that's more than your normal hourly rate, because I understand this isn't a long-term relationship and stuff like that. So whatever you feel is appropriate, I'm happy to do, and I'll PayPal that to you. And can I get on your calendar in the next 2 weeks? Every single person said, that sounds really interesting. Yes, let's schedule it. And every single person said, oh, I'll do it for free.
That is awesome.
Pay at all. You never pay. But by saying that, you're respecting them, and that separates you from 99% of the other kinds of emails they may or may not get like that, saying, I mean it. I want you, and you're valuable, and you're communicating that. And they won't take advantage of it, it turns out. And by the way, if they said it's $100, it might even be worth $100, but it may not. So you can say, all right, well, my calendar's full, never mind.
Oh, nice one.
So that's a way to break in. Other people do it with cold calling in a sort of similar fashion. You can do that too, but LinkedIn's an easy one.
Oh, definitely.
You can do that on Twitter too, I suppose, but LinkedIn lets you have just a little bit more text and so on. And it lets you hone in on people you don't really know yet and know that they're sort of in the right ballpark. So, no, you've got to get strangers, otherwise it ain't validation.
I love that. And I've done the cold calling and that's a pain in the ass. So being able to have LinkedIn, I think, works a lot better. So tell me what you say to them on the phone call when we're doing this.
That's a whole, I mean, we could go on and on about what it means to do customer validation. There's a
Okay.
lot of theories out there about how you should do it.
Okay.
I have a lot of opinions about this, and I continue to do it today. You never stop figuring out what is going on in people's lives. Time moves on, and people's needs do change, as well as your understanding of the market, the part of the market you're tapping into, all that changes. So it never ends.
Mhm.
I think there's a couple of things just off the top of my head. Like you have to decide what you believe is true about their life or about the world ahead of time. Those are your theories. And then you can make questions that test them, and not directly, but indirectly. In other words, you can't lead the witness. You have to ask things that will, in fact, validate or invalidate or quantify the theory that you have. So an example for me would be, I think the average consultant has 20 customers that they manage. Or because once they're established, they'll have like these different websites. Every once in a while they do work for somebody. So that's my theory. Now, how do I ask the question? I ask, how many websites do you actively manage? Right? I can't lead them. So
Mm.
if you manage less than or more than five, or turns out that there's actually a big that it's by modal. There are people that have 40, 50 customers that they ping now and then, and there's people who say, oh no, I'm only active on like three at any given time, and then I don't do maintenance work. That's how it turns out.
Hmm.
But like you can't find that out unless you ask open-ended questions against a theory that you have.
Yeah.
And as you go, you validate and invalidate and change your theories. And new stuff comes up, of course, that you didn't think of, that you add to your pile of theories. And of course, hopefully by the end of it, you have some validated set of theories about how the world is, which is the key thing, because that's what you're building, the rest of the stuff around, those assumptions.
How do you know when you've had enough, though?
I have a way.
Okay. We're gonna
It's-
follow you. What is the way? Show us the way,
Yeah.
Jason.
Well, it's not a number of customers. Sometimes you can tell in a dozen calls, and sometimes I know people have done 150 calls and still are trying to figure out where their path is. And maybe you could say at that point, there isn't one. Go find something else. Fair enough, but at least they know they haven't found it yet.
Mm.
So before doing WPEngine, I had another idea for a startup that was really cool. And every time I talked to someone, they said, that is a great idea. You know what you should do with that? And then the next thing they said was different for every single person I talked to.
Huh.
And that means it's not in business yet. It's an interesting idea, right? Like, there you go. Which is why you can't stop at good idea. Of course, it's a pretty good idea for some people. You don't need, so what?
There's a lot of really good ideas. Okay. Yeah.
So that actually ended up not working out. Like one person would say, this is great. You should charge $2,000 a month and sell it through VARs. And the next one would say, it should be freemium model or else I'd never use it. And the next one says, it should be $50 a month because if it was free, I would think it has no value. And I mean, it's just everyone I talk to is something different.
And how many people did you end up talking to validate that was sort of
like
not right?
20 or 30 because
Okay.
everyone kept saying it was a good idea. But,
So you kept going.
so-
Yeah.
oh, well, then I got to figure this out. But it didn't. Whereas WPEngine didn't go that way. And so the way I characterize the difference between those two things, i.e., an idea that's not leading to a business, an idea that is leading to a business, and when to stop is, first of all, you stop when you're bored. So in other words, I got to the point with the WPEngine calls where in the first three questions, that would sort of place that person in a certain category, and I could tell you what they were going to say in all the other questions. And the variance became nil.
Mm.
And that's when you know to stop. Not because you know everything, but because this process is not generating new information for you right now. So doing this process right now, not helpful. Now you've got to go build more stuff, do something, do something else other than this because it's not helping anymore. Right?
You got all you could get from that specific thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's nothing to do but something else. Whereas with the other thing, that wasn't the case. I didn't know what the next person was saying, and so I couldn't stop. So in one sense, I couldn't stop. So how do you know that also that's just not working out? So the way I think of it is, in physics, there are certain laws of physics that are completely immutable, like the law of conservation of energy. If I raise a ball up, it gets potential energy. So if I let it go, potential energy is lost and it gains kinetic energy as it starts moving. And then not only is the law never invalidated, but when you think it's invalidated, the law isn't invalidated. You're understanding.
You are. Yeah.
So for example, you roll it down a ramp and then it stops and you're like, hey, it stopped. Well, it lost energy. It must be wrong. It's like, no, there's this other thing called heat. In other words, the law isn't wrong, your understanding of the world's wrong. And then you realize as you keep looking, oh, heat is actually little things moving around, which is kinetic energy again. Oh my God, it's all kinetic energy. You were right all along. And in fact, if I know that's kinetic energy, I could predict things about how heat should work and how gases should work. And in fact, all those things turn out to be exactly true. In other words, the law is so immutable that we learn things about the world, not vice versa. And it's even true with quantum mechanics. It's even true with relativity. It's just true. And the way you can tell it's true is that as you explore the world, every time you think maybe it's invalid, it's like, no, you're the one that's wrong. That's how you know it's true. It always shows up as true. But then there's other laws where that's not the case. Like it turns out there's a law for the drag that an airplane has in flight, and it's 1/2 times the velocity squared times some constant that has to do with the nature of the plane. That's amazing if you think about it. There's air swirling around this thing and interacting in all kinds of ways over surfaces. And after all of that incredible complexity, there's just a simple law about drag. That's amazing. But it turns out it's not a fundamental law. And the way you can tell is when you start exploring that, you find the law keeps breaking down in all kinds of directions. If the plane's going really slowly towards stall, it doesn't work as a different formula. If it's going really, really fast, actually the air swirls around a different way and it's a different formula. If the plane's turning, there's a different formula. If you remove one wing, the drag on the other wing actually changes because the wings are, of course, connected structurally, and that matters, it turns out. In other words, every time we poke at it and try to, test it, it's wrong every single time. In other words, it's a neat coincidence. It's cool. It's even potentially useful, but it ain't a fundamental law. It's just it's like an interesting thing we found.
Okay.
Whereas another thing, we keep poking at it and it keeps becoming it keeps staying fundamental. So to me, when you're doing customer development, this is exactly the case. And this is how you can sort of think about the difference between WPEngine, where as I poked and prodded, it just kept coming back to people want their sites to be fast and scalable, secure, talk to someone in support that knows WordPress, and have a staging area. And with those 5 things, anyone who gave any kind of a crap about their website was ready to pay $50 a month. End of story. That was a fundamental law. It was converging, in other words, on something that seemed to be fundamentally true. And then with that combined with boredom, as the things happened, then I could stop and I've got something. Whereas the first idea, there was interesting idea. That was where there was a law that was interesting. And it's not that there was no good idea there. It was. But then as I poked it, it just fell apart. And that meant there wasn't something there. And that's how the mental model to understand whether it's going one way or another.
So that previous idea, do you think that would ever be successful in any aspect? Because I think a lot of people start... Absolutely. Okay, good.
I know it would because I've seen other startups do different aspects of that.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean, oh, it was my idea. No. This was an idea in online marketing analytics. So every kind of idea at every kind of market that can be tried is going to be tried. So this isn't like I'm so smart that I found this. Hell no.
Wait, you are smart, Jason.
You can see all the other companies doing certain paths that I was doing, which doesn't mean anything about me at all. Yes, I absolutely could have picked that.
Yeah.
So I combine. So some of this stuff is personal and where you are in your life and what you're trying to do with it. At this point in my life, I'd already made more money than I can spend selling SmartBear, and so to me, if I found an idea that it was okay, it probably can become a real business, even a huge business, but I couldn't see the path really clearly, then I wasn't interested in pursuing it because I didn't need that struggle again.
Oh, okay.
Time. Like I had the luxury. It wasn't luck because it took 15 years to get to that point, so it's not luck, right? But I had earned the luxury, financially and otherwise, to wait for the perfect thing.
So it wasn't even about the challenge and figuring out the challenge of it. You're like, that idea isn't worth it. Even though you had the money, you didn't need the cash.
I don't need the cash, and so I don't need to rush into some other company. I can, wait for sounds too passive, but nevertheless, I can wait for another idea, another thing that is valued, that does seem big, that seems like it would be easier. I mean, look how hard startups are. Who could argue with that? So of all the things that are difficult, all the risk, all the things, on top of that, I'm not really sure how to find customers either. Like, I don't need to have more problems. I don't need to have more barriers. I can wait for something where, man, just all the barriers are gone, except for of course, all the things that can't be just gone early on, right?
But starting with a much better foundation, that makes it so it's a lot easier to build your company.
Yeah, and I can afford literally to wait until I have that. And by the way, that could have turned into someone else had it and I wanted to join them and become their co-founder or their
Hmm.
or something. Had I found something else that I was really passionate, like it could have been anything,
Hmm.
right? I was in that like the luxurious position.
The openness of trying to figure out what would be good.
After I sold SmartBear, I stayed at home and we had a baby and I was a stay-at-home dad for a year.
Really?
Like that's how much I was just going, I'm going to do whatever I want to do at the moment. That's the deal. So I literally mean it could have been anything. I could have just stayed a stay-at-home dad and kept writing. I still did keep writing, of course, but like I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
So it could have been anything. It's just that WP Engine turned into this thing that did in fact hit on all these cylinders in the business sense, also for me personally, in an intellectual challenge sense around the business and the technology, and so on and so forth. And so I did do it. But it was not lucky, but it was fortunate that I could wait for the right thing. But
Hmm.
still, I think everyone should wait for the right thing, even if that means treading water at a day job or consulting, because life is too short. And again, it is too hard. It's too hard to do these damn startups. It's too difficult. How many people want to do it? And how many people have their sights set on, as you say, a net worth of $1 million? Or you could say monthly revenue of 10 grand a month so that you can definitely quit your day job and stop consulting and be comfortable that even with some variation, you're going to be fine, right?
Hmm.
Um, those are fantastic goals. I love businesses like that. I just told you that WPEngine was supposed to be a business like that. Even after I built a bigger business, that's still the business I wanted to build. So I'm so personally in line with that idea.
See, I love being able to hear you
It's so
say
hard.
like that this is sort of the smaller side of it because I know a lot of people that are listening are like, "Oh my gosh, $1 million in revenue, that sounds crazy." But you're like, there's a lot more out there, which I think is important. One question though to go back to what you were saying as far as the waiting goes, and you highlighted a little bit, but I just sort of wanted to dig a little deeper. If someone does have a day job and they're trying this stuff and they want to quit, right? What do you suggest for them to wait, especially if they're so excited about trying to start this thing?
Well, I don't think you should wait in other words, in the sense of you're not working on it,
Yeah.
right? That you're not doing something about it. No, just the opposite. You got to be constantly out there trying to do something about it, right?
Mhm.
What I would say though is I do talk to a lot of folks where they clearly don't have a business in that there's not the whole business model, these things I've listed, right? It's not there. And so to me, does that mean you give up? No, it means you tackle head on. You say, okay, I have to be honest with myself that no, I don't know how I'm going to get to 100 customers. That is not clear. I got to tackle that next. Not do nothing, not give up, but tackle that. And so what happens is whatever you naturally enjoy doing, you just decide to go do that and ignore the thing that you actually need to do to build a business. So
Yeah.
the quintessential example is the engineer who loves to write code and is in love with her idea, and rightly so, because it probably is a good idea in isolation. And so rather than tackling the notion of, well, how much am I going to charge? How am I going to charge? How am I going to find them? How am I going to get them to the site? What will I do on there that'll convince them to do it? What are the three things that are really going to get people's attention? How do I communicate that? What does that mean in terms of a great user experience? What does it take in a great onboarding experience so that I don't get covered in tech support emails that I can't answer in a timely fashion because I'm working, right? These are all the things that are needed for the business to be successful
Mm.
at any level. And yet, it's so much easier to just go work on a feature that is cool. Like, I'm not even arguing that it's not cool, but seeing the business.
Yeah.
You go back into that hole and do what's comfy because it's easy. So what I'd say is
Mm.
that is kind of the key thing. It's not give up, and it's not, it's you got to tackle the things that really are needed for the business head on
Mm.
and work on them because that's the only way to get the business to work so you can quit the damn day job.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about once you get that validation. So for WPEngine, you got the validation. Then what's that next step of validation, like you were saying, to take some action on?
You build it.
So you just built the whole thing.
Well, you build enough to get those people's money.
Good.
What I recommend is that you get the money first.
Hmm.
I wish I had done this at WPEngine so I could tell you that I did it, but I didn't. But what I did do is advise other startups since then on this technique, which is you literally get the check first.
And that's valid, right? Because I know like Tim Ferriss talks about that, it doesn't matter if you have the product now, you want to get the money to validate it and all that stuff. Is that legal? People always ask that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. That's it.
I mean, just, you're honest about it.
Yeah.
You're honest that this is vaporware and you're talking about, but that is the ultimate validation. And I know quite a few startups that are successful at doing that. I mean, it sounds like it's impossible. And yeah, you know what? If the people you're talking to aren't really stoked about it, they won't give you the check. You're right. And so usually it's fear in that you will get rejected. Right. That's why you got to ask the question to find out for real if they're just giving you lip service or if they really, really would say yes to your product existing.
Yes.
And it doesn't take a lot. Like you don't need to have 100 of those checks, right? Like, and not every person is going to give you a check, and that doesn't mean it's invalid, right? But you get 10 people giving you checks and another 20 people saying they will give you a check. Now you know this is worth plowing all of your spare time into, and so on. Otherwise, you don't know if you're wasting your time.
Their yeses are only yeses when they can pull out their wallet and give you the cash for it.
Yeah, and that's part of why I completely disagree with people who say that during customer validation you don't talk price.
Ooh.
I appreciate and respect that approach. I understand it, but I disagree completely. I don't think you are doing validation unless you talk price. And the way to see this is to imagine a conversation and at the end say, "Oh, and by the way, it's $1,000 a month," and see what the reaction is. It'll change, won't it?
Oh,
And
yeah.
don't you need to know what they expect that to be and how that should work? And isn't pricing one of the biggest questions that every single person doing a business asks about? And is there a formula? And what are the tricks? And how do I charge more? And it's like one of the critical questions that every single person asks. So what? You're not going to ask the people that you're going to charge? Like it totally changes the tenor of what it is. It's also, in a weird way, it's marketing and branding. In other words, when you go to the pricing page and it says it's $1,000 a month, that sets the tenor of what the product is, who the customer can be, what they expect from it, as opposed to you go over there and it's $9 a month, and now what do they expect? It actually is part of the brand and positioning of the product. And since customer development is a lot of trying to figure out that, again, that's yet another argument, another log on the fire of why you have to talk price, because it's part of that perception, and it will be when you set up your website. So the counter argument to that is, well, don't get into finance when you're just trying to find out the person's pain. When you're just trying to find out what's going on in their life, you don't want to complicate that or conflate that with things like marketing crap like price. So again, I respect that position. That makes sense.
Marketing crap, though. I mean, I don't know. That's a lot of what a business is, so it's kind of hard to say.
That's right, but it makes sense. Like that argument makes sense to me, but to me, this is a fundamental thing to understand. And by the way, if all that pain point stuff works, but your price point does not work, then you don't have a business and you haven't validated it. You'll notice that a lot of people who talk about that also are talking about businesses that are funded and businesses that are consumer. And then I actually agree, because if you're funded, you actually can decide, I'm going to go after traction defined by activity and engagement, because the funding can mean I can figure out my business model later, and especially true in consumer who doesn't want to pay for anything online. So I can see it in that category. But for you, me, and everybody watching this who wants to just build a business, quit the day job, make $1 million a year, or have $1 million in the bank, or whatever, all of that is complete horseshit, right? Like none of that is relevant to anything that we're talking about. So screw it; it doesn't matter. I'll find the price because this is critical. You've got to get, in my opinion, sort of the first goal for small companies is, and by the way, small companies, when I say it, it sounds pejorative only because TechCrunch and the Silicon Valley attitude decides that it is, but it totally isn't. It's only, so you have to avoid that. So it is a small business, but it's not a pejorative, okay? So to me, the first thing for a small business, the goal is to get to $10,000 a month in revenue per founder, because everyone quit their day job. And it's not until you're doing it full time, no consulting, no day job, that you're really going to have a business that's solid and that can be all that it can be, whatever the size and shape of it is. You have to get to that point. It can't be on the side. So it's a race to getting to 10 grand a month in revenue per founder. And so for that, again, like if you're not talking about price right off the bat and getting to that, I mean,
you're not even going to know how to get to that number.
Yeah, you've got to know that you can get there.
Yeah.
To be comfortable quitting your job and saying, I'm doing this in a way that is responsible.
I love your perspective, and I know we have to start wrapping up really soon because I'm pretty sure we could chat for way too long. So can you, for the last question, I always ask, what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
Raise your prices.
Ooh. That's it. Raise your prices.
Now, there's lots of ways to do that. You can just raise them. You can create different tiers. You can create different usage within the tiers. You can create add-ons. You can raise your prices for certain kinds of customers. You can raise your prices for a week. You can raise your prices, and then since you're scared of doing that, I know you can then have a coupon that puts it back where it was so that some people can have that coupon and the rest of the people who don't find the coupon can just pay more. I mean, you can go on and on like, here's what that means. But I don't think I've ever met someone who's trying to get what Rob Brawling would call a micro business or a micro ISV off the ground, whose prices are too high.
Really?
Never met that person, but I have met lots of people who weren't high enough. I told them to raise it, and it works. The general thing is that you raise your prices 50%, maybe double, and nothing happens to the sign-up rate at all. You just get more money. That's the general
I'm
effect.
like grinning. I love this one. That's
usually
awesome.
But everyone's scared. They don't want to do it. And by the way, I totally understand because, I mean, at Smart Bear, my first product was $19.95. Within 3 or 4 years, it was $1,300 a seat. Okay? So, and every single time I raised my price, every time I was sure this was a stupid idea. I was sure that I was tanking the company. I did it, and Smart Bear, by the way, completely bootstrapped the whole way. So just like what we're talking about here, it just it just kept growing, and it destroyed me every single time I did it. And
For how long? So every
single time orders went up. Every time. And yet it still destroyed me every time. I didn't even learn from the pattern I was seeing in front of me. It still destroyed me. So I still had to get excuses. Well, you can buy the old version for cheaper. Well, it's only the newest version. Well, we'll grandfather. Well, I'll raise it by 30%, not 50% because I'm too scared. Like there was always a reason. I never even learned my own lesson, and yet there it was all the time. The other day I was talking to someone here at the co-working space that we're in, and he was talking about his prices, and I was like, so that's great that you can get people to pay that every month. And he goes, oh no, those are my annual rates. I said, wait a minute. I said, do this. Just say per month instead of per year, and just change your pricing, see what happens. And he goes, well, I don't know, blah, 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 I don't know if I can do that. So I said, here's what you do. How many people sign up every day? It was like 1 or 2, right? Mm-hmm. That's actually not bad for a small business to have 1 or 2 signups a day. I mean, paying customers a day, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, well, do this. Do this for a week, just a week. The worst case is you lost between 5 and 10 signups, and that sucks. Mm-hmm. But even if you just got a couple of signups at that rate, that would actually more than pay for that already. And so that's better anyway. And the very worst case is you get 0 signups, and that would suck, but then you'd know. And you'll be right and I'll be wrong. So he changed it, and nothing happened at all to his sign-up rate, nothing at all. So
really?
He 12x'd his price and nothing happened, okay? Another technique for raising your prices on that is drastically increase your monthly rate, but then offer an annual rate with a heavy discount, right? So multiply your current monthly rate by 5, but then offer it, or 10 or like that, but then offer an annual rate that says, hey, half off if you sign up for a year. Or 2 months free, 3 months free, that sort of a thing. And then see what happens. Because if you're worried about price, well, then people will just do the annual, and that will get them back the original price. Except they brought the cash flow forward, didn't they? Even if so if you increase your prices and people sign up for an annual, and even if that ends up being the same monthly rate, but you got paid all 12 months today, that means you can quit your day job because your cash flow just multiplied by 10. Just by changing by doing the annual thing with a discount. And by the way, you can raise your prices when you do that. And then the people who still elect to do monthly and not do the cash flow ahead are paying you more, a lot more than today. That works all the time. I don't think I've ever told that to a small business owner who has implemented it, where they have an increase as a result.
Really?
And of course, their cash flow by a lot. Even at WPEngine, we did this, and our cash flow tripled.
Really?
Tripled.
And of course, every single person that you said it to is like, but I don't know.
That's right. Everyone, I'm scared. And again, I get it because I totally was scared, even though I was seeing it from my own eyes. So although I'm not acting like I'm empathetic to that, I really, really am. And I totally get that it takes some therapy to get through this point. Ask what is the most important thing that will, without doubt, completely change your cash flow, revenue, your ability to quit your day job, and therefore on your path to having $1 million in whatever format and whatever time frame, raise your prices.
And take all the cash that you make from money from that and have it as a therapist, so that way they can help you through more of it. Thank you so much, Jason. Where can we find more about WPEngine or your blog and all that stuff? Give us all the links and all the good stuff so that we know where to go.
So I write about exactly this kind of stuff every 2 weeks or so on asmartbear.com. And then the company that I started 3 years ago running now is WPEngine.com. And we host WordPress sites. So if you
just like mine.
Just like yours. So if all that stuff made sense to you about sites being fast so you rank higher in SEO and all that.
Huge. And I love you guys because I went to install W3 Total Cache so the geeky people will know this stuff. And like you wouldn't let me because you already have that stuff already set up. And I'm like, I love you. I love the fact that you care about this stuff. Because before my previous server was, a nightmare. And I'm a geek. I'm a huge geek. So I'm like, yeah. Anyway, thank you for existing. I appreciate it.
For the plug.
I know, right? Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jason. I really appreciate it.
It was fun. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.